Hey, so this is the Chief. So I'm back. I was just gonna discuss. Somebody was asking me how to speed up BBs, and this has been on my mind for a really long time, and so I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit. This is just gonna be kind of a where my brain's at. Some of the plans. I'm still waiting for some stuff to come in the mail, and without further ado, let's just jump into it. I guess traditionally when you look at some of the BB guns, these things are target guns. I mean, really. I don't. Hopefully this isn't frame. Let's just check it out. So this is a Daisy Powerline 426. Now in previous videos, what I've done is I've taken this gun and stabilized it. I've also put some white on the sight so I can see. I've fully oiled this up. I've used a white lithium grease where the barrel meets the area that the BBs drop into, so it'll seat. I haven't really messed with the spring. I don't really like messing with the spring that pushes the barrel back because it messes with the trigger. Something else that I've kind of done is I've just stabilized it because this is a target gun. I mean, that's basically what they are. But this thing had a mechanism back here that would leak, and so I tap and dyed it, enlarged the reservoir, and I put in a bigger spring. You can see that in previous videos. Another thing that I've done is I've used Plasti Dip to coat the CO2 cartridge, and the reason I did that is I'm trying to keep this from freezing. It's kind of like an insulation because I'm using CO2, and CO2 is a refrigerant, and when you first pull the trigger you've got full speed, but any trigger pull after that it tends to slow down until it warms back up, which brings me to the point of this video. Anyway, you kind of got a plan. So if you're looking for speed, you kind of got to stay away from something. I mean, this is a really good gun, and I wouldn't mind defending myself at close range with it, the P365. But whenever you've got this action, it slows stuff down. I mean, it's so much like a replica. This has nothing. It just looks like it does something, but it does nothing. And so this, goes up about 100 feet a second just for, another inch on the barrel, and the fact that it doesn't have a moving slide. Anyway, enough about that. Just a couple of ideas. So what I've done is I've kind of come up with some ideas. Since we've got these, CO2s. Here, let's hop in here and just grab one. The CO2 is a refrigerant. I'm sorry, some people are already going to know this stuff. Just bear with me. I'm trying to help people that I've got to bring up from ground level. This is a refrigerant. And the reason it expels a BB out the end of a barrel is when some of this, when you pull the trigger, some of this is released into the barrel. When it's released into the barrel, this turns from a liquid to a gas, and that gas forces the BB out of the chamber. Here, let's move that back in there. Anyway, so how are we going to speed that up? And I've kind of got some thinking. I'm like, well, we could insulate the CO2 cartridges. I mean, that's possible. We could insulate the barrel some, but I mean, that's only going to give us a little bit. And so what I've been looking at is blow dryers. So when you look at a blow dryer, I mean, the reason this blows hot air out is it uses these coils, and these coils use nichrome wire. So this nichrome wire resists the electricity that's passed through it. It dissipates as heat, and then you got a fan that blows out the heat. Another good example of this is a toaster. Toasters also use a nichrome wire, and this is kind of something I bought off eBay. So it's a 22 gauge. I got 30 feet. This was about 10 bucks, and I was planning on making coils out of this. So I need a power source. I've got a box here. This should hold a 9-volt. And I was thinking about, coiling up some and just trying out different coils and seeing which coil works best with a 9-volt. I'm not really looking at longevity here. I'm looking at something that can heat up the barrel. This has an on and off switch, so it'll need to be mounted in a way that I can access that on or off switch. I've got some stuff where I can glue it onto the bottom of one of these plastic guns. I don't think this is going to be a permanent solution. That's kind of why instead of the box, I was planning on doing something like this first. Maybe cutting that and adding a switch, because I do want to turn it on and off. But I was thinking about using a 9-volt for power first. Of course, if that didn't work out, I was probably going to jump into the 18650s. They basically run everything. It's a lithium ion, but there's also a lithium ion 9-volt battery that you can get, and I think that might be important because there's a real power curve with a regular battery where it starts off at full voltage and just drops. And when you've got a lithium ion, you've got the battery delivers the voltage throughout its energy and then drops at the end when it has no more to deliver. So, everybody runs their phones on it. I'm recording this video on one. So lithium ion might be the answer. So my goal, here it is. I've got Hornady black iron black BBs, and I plan on pushing them out of the barrel of a gun a bunch faster. So I took apart a gun, and this one I've been playing with a little bit. You can see kind of some of that lithium grease. I kind of use it in there to help make the connection and help seal. I will add a little bit of a stretch to the spring that comes in the back. So the idea was to take, some sort of a box and attach it to the bottom of one of these and, run some wires inside of this thing and heat this barrel. So let's grab the barrel. So we've got a barrel. The thing is that there's a big spring that fits over the barrel. You can tell I messed with the spring a little bit. So when I'm heating up this barrel, my coil's going to need to be underneath that. And so I don't know if that necessarily is a good idea, or I space this out, have less coil, make something here and just heat up this side of it, or I just go into heating up this. But I can't really go into here too much because there's a bunch of the mechanism in the way. But anyway, the idea is to heat this barrel up in a way with this wire, but I don't want to interrupt this spring. And I don't think that I will. Of course, if you put something in there, you've got something to wear on. So the goal is to heat up this barrel. Okay, so anyway, this gun is a Powerline Daisy 415. It's a top-loading BB. The reason why I chose it is because I played around with this gun a lot, just trying out different stuff. Glow-in-the-dark fingernail paint. All kinds of stuff on this gun. Anyway, I'm kind of really familiar with it. Eventually, I'll probably do some teardowns on one. But they're really inexpensive. They're like $30 over at Walmart. Anyway, and they're not super hard to put back together. Parts are readily available. You spend $30 more, you'll have a whole entire another gun, so you can practice on it. So that's why I'm not really worried. If I destroy this thing, whatever, and I've done a bunch of stuff with it already, I don't think it's really gonna be a problem. I mean, the idea is to coil this up and figure out how many coils I need and what's a good coil combination for a 9-volt battery and this wire. Anyway, I thought that I might need a glue gun or some glue sticks. I don't know. I've got a soldering iron here. For those of you who haven't soldered before, I'll probably do some soldering stuff. I use a wet sponge, but you could use a paper towel or whatever and get it wet. Get it yourself a soldering iron and make sure it's clean. Sometimes I have to sand them off a little bit. Like this one's really dark. It's been a while since I've soldered. I might have to clean that off. Then I heat it up and then you tamp it. The solder that I like to use is a resin core. I've got 6040. This is actually from Radio Shack, so it'll tell you how long ago I actually bought solder. But that's how I'm going to solder my wires. And on the bottom of these guns, you've got this like area. This whole chamber right here is empty. So I've got a really good access in the bottom of this gun. They have like just like a metal thing. Here, let's grab it. It's like a weight. It sits in this gun. And it just kind of gives you weight in the front of the gun. It's not super important. I don't think it's necessary. But maybe it helps with people in their balance or whatever. This gun is already hot. On a good warm day, you're getting 500 feet per second. But I'm wondering if we can increase that, if we can heat up the barrel. I thought about heating up the CO2 cartridges. It just didn't seem like a good way to go. And another thing that I thought is at some point maybe laying wire across the top of this where all the BBs are, because this is a top loader. Maybe heating up the BB would be a good way to go. I think eventually I want to get to the point where I make some sort of an attachment that goes on the end of the gun that's just universal. But the problem that I have there is that all the barrels move. So when you pull the trigger, it goes out, and when it comes out, it indexes another one of these little BBs in place, and then it strikes the reservoir back here. So I don't know how far I've got. Oh, I've got this part pretty far. Hold on. The barrel slams into here and then releases air. I don't know. I was just studying this one. It's got a pretty good sized reservoir. Another thing too is you've got a really good big bottom down here. This might be a good thing to stick a battery in. I don't know. Maybe set something up to where I'm plugging a battery in and turning that into where I plug in the battery. But what I really like about this gun is you can just store a CO2 cartridge in here without engaging it. You can then open it, twist it, engage it, and bring it back. And it does have a really nice, good feel to it. This thing shoots BBs hot anyway, but I'm just wondering, can I increase the speed? I've got a little here, so I can. I got this like device so I can check the voltages. I've got a bunch of used batteries, so I was gonna probably go after the best one. And I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Another good thing to do, since I'm already here, you know, you've got your barrel that rests inside. I mean, this is just some ideas for the people out there. You know, you got your gun, your reservoir, and you know, you've got your CO2 that comes in here. It's like your CO2. You know, it's in here or whatever, and it releases into this reservoir. Well, when this thing springs back and you pull the trigger, this slams into this reservoir. I put a lot of grease right here because that helps facilitate a nice good seal. And another thing too is I won't add too much to the spring, but I will pull the spring out. So it's just like a 1/4 of an inch longer. I won't go much beyond that because it'll start to affect the trigger, and then you're gonna have to start messing with that trigger spring and making that more intense, or getting a different spring for it. Anyway, so that's just my idea. I was gonna like heat up the barrels and see if I can get to the point where I'm getting more feet per second. Because if I can make that gas, if I can make this liquid turn to gas much faster, there we go. Another thing that I ran into is lubrication. I mean, if you're going to get to the point where you're shooting BBs out of something, I found that, WD-40, running it through the whole system. Some people use some like gun oil. Another thing that I really like is that 3-in-1 oil. I don't have that bottle here. It's in the garage. But the 3-in-1 oil, I will actually put it inside the gun, and I'll shoot a couple CO2s through it, and I'll put basically oil the whole gun to where everything's lubricated inside. I mean, that's something they don't do with these guns, and I find it really important. So I plan on going through this whole like build with people, and I'll kind of show you what I do, and then eventually I plan on getting a chronograph, and then we'll just take a regular stock gun and one that's been modded, and look at the numbers. Anyway, that's kind of my video. I was looking at some stuff to make stuff go faster. Another thing is some sort of a barrel extension. I wanted to get to the point where I could make a barrel extension that maybe I did something to this, so I could either tap or die this, so I could add something to it. But if we can get this barrel out to 6 inches or even 7 inches, we could definitely increase the feet per second a lot. That coupled with maybe the heat, maybe eventually that's what this needs to be. Maybe this needs to be some attachment someday that has the battery and everything all on the front, and you just come up and lock it into place on certain kinds of BB guns, and you can just upgrade them right there on the fly. Anyway, that's about it on my video. I'll get back at you when I figure out how I'm going to solder all this together, and then I'll get a bunch of that on the video too, so you can see what I'm doing. I kind of wanted to start it this way, where you're in my planning process. Maybe it helps some people kind of see and kind of give you an overview of everything that I have and what's going on, and what kind of BBs I'm using, and I mean, just standard stuff. I mean, the first one's going to look a little bit more like a wreck, but I plan on making everything really streamlined and look nice when I'm done. Alright, anyway, that concludes my video on my speed theory. Thanks for watching. Sorry it was so long.